Welcome to the Past in Pictures channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. In 1989, a group of men works to open a passage in the Berlin Wall. The graffiti-covered surface begins to break while water jets are aimed to try to stop the effort. The moment represents the approach of the end of the city's division after decades of separation. A dark mark recorded on a surface in Hiroshima after 1945. The outline indicates where a person stood at the moment of a very intense flash. This effect, called a projected shadow, arose due to the strong light emitted during the explosion. In this photograph from the 1950s, Betty Brosmer appears while drying her dress. The record shows one of the best-known models of the time in a simple everyday moment, reflecting her strong presence in the culture of that period. A child smiles in a studio photo taken in 1944. He wears a striped outfit and looks at the camera shortly before being taken to a confinement camp during a period of repression in Europe. Displaced people cross the remains of a destroyed bridge in 1945, moving carefully through damage left by the Second World War. They head toward a safer place, carrying belongings as they try to leave the war-struck area behind. The scene shows a man seated and restrained by a metal frame, wearing clothing common in health institutions of the time. The photograph was taken at West Riding Asylum in England during a period when physical restraints were used in psychiatric facilities. On April 1, 1975, in Nha Trang, the scene shows people rushing to board an aircraft during the United States' withdrawal from South Vietnam. The moment took place in the last weeks of the Vietnam War as the fall of Saigon and the end of the South Vietnamese regime drew near. On August 21, 1968, residents of Prague confront a Soviet tank in the streets. The action is part of popular resistance to the presence of Warsaw Pact forces that sought to stop the reforms known as the Prague Spring. The photograph shows the hand of a child in Uganda resting on an adult's hand during a humanitarian mission. The contrast between the hands highlights the fragility caused by poverty and, at the same time, the helping gesture that marked that period of need in the country. At Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands on July 1, 1946, the scene shows photographers ready on the test range before a major military experiment. They used large format cameras on heavy tripods and high-speed film to capture every detail of the procedure. Actress Sophia Loren poses smiling with her arms raised in a 1955 photograph. She wears an elegant dress and appears to be at a social event or a photo session, representing the style and look of European cinema of that period, without personal identification. In Nangarhar Province, Afghanistan, in 1988, the scene shows a Mujahideen fighter setting a shoulder-fired missile while watching a Soviet aircraft pass overhead in the conflict of the time. The image shows United States National Guard soldiers advancing with weapons during a student demonstration at Kent State University in the state of Ohio. The episode took place on May 4, 1970, during a tense period tied to protests against the Vietnam War. The image shows a soldier wearing the helmet that protected him during an impact in the Vietnam War. On the top, there's a deep mark left by the projectile. The word July, written by hand, refers to the name of his daughter, reminding him why he kept the helmet after surviving the attack. Prisoners in Imperial China appear wearing kangs in 1902. The large wooden structures locked around the neck were part of judicial practices of the time, used for control and public exposure. This photo shows a man drinking from a water fountain marked for separate use in North Carolina, United States, in 1950. Next to it, there is a newer fountain reserved for a different group, reflecting the racial segregation of that period. The center of Rotterdam appears completely devastated after the air attack of May 14, 1940. The area shows wide blocks in ruins and few structures still standing, including the church near the center of the frame. Women of many nationalities serve in military roles during the Second World War, wearing uniforms and taking part directly in the war effort. They assume essential tasks in areas such as communications, logistics, nursing, and operational support, reflecting the expansion of women's roles in the conflicts of that time. The scene shows nurses walking through trenches cut between wooden buildings at a field medical center in 1918. The passages were created to allow protected movement between hospital wards during a time of heavy demand in wartime organization. Gas masks became essential equipment starting in 1915, when chemical weapons were frequently used in the First World War. Soldiers and civilians began carrying these devices to reduce risk during attacks with toxic substances in a period marked by new forms of combat. German soldiers approached to calm a crying child in 1944 in the final years of the Second World War. The scene shows the troops trying to offer some comfort amid the conflict and displacement of that period. Young German soldiers appear just after being captured at the end of the war in 1945. They are gathered in a field area still wearing military gear, reflecting the collapse of the regime and the advance of Allied forces. In Amiens, France, in 1918, the scene shows a woman seated on a bench next to a cow after both escaped a conflict area. They rest before rubble left by First World War bombardment amid the destroyed cityscape. The photo shows a group walking through the streets of Harlem in New York City during a protest against the Vietnam War in 1967. In the center, a participant carries a sign with a phrase condemning racial inequality. A diver works in the area where the sunken ship SS Richard Montgomery rests in the Thames estuary in the United Kingdom. He operates at the water's surface near markers that show the position of the remains of the ammunition-loaded vessel that went down during the war. On July 20, 1969, the moon landing became the most watched television event in United States history. It is estimated that about 650 million people followed the broadcast around the world, marking a central moment in space exploration. In 1958, a United States Air Force pilot conducts a zero-gravity test with a cat on board an F-94C Starfire. During a dive maneuver at about 25,000 feet of altitude, the animal floats inside the cockpit, allowing observation of its behavior in a brief absence of weight. In 1928, Amelia Earhart stands before her biplane named Friendship in Newfoundland. The record is tied to the flight that crossed the Atlantic that year, an important moment in her career and in the history of aviation. Zen monks of Asakusa Temple in Tokyo take part in exercises in 1936 to simulate air raids. They wear gas masks while practicing protection procedures, reflecting civil preparedness measures adopted in Japan in that period. The 1901 glider is tested on the dunes of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, during the Wright brothers' early experiments. The simple light model served as a base for the development of controlled flight in the years that followed. The bathysphere used in 1930 appears as the first vessel for deep-water exploration. Created by Otis Barton and William Beebe, the device was used in a descent of approximately 1,300 feet in the Atlantic Ocean near Bermuda. In 1937, the scene records the opening of the Golden Gate Bridge to the public when Mayor Angelo Rossi used an acetylene torch to cut the silver chain. The gesture symbolized the start of traffic flowing from both sides of the newly opened bridge. In Cardington, Bedfordshire, United Kingdom, in 1919, the image shows a British airship being assembled inside a large hangar. The craft, about 656 feet long, used hydrogen gas to stay aloft. During the opening celebrations of the Golden Gate Bridge in May 1937, The scene shows airplanes flying between the towers while pedestrians cross the newly opened structure. The record highlights the community's presence at the festive event. During the construction of the Empire State Building in New York in 1930, a worker is suspended at great height while handling cables and steel. The city skyline appears in the background, showing the scale of the project that would become one of the world's most iconic skyscrapers. In 1931, workers take a lunch break seated on the still exposed cables of the St. John's Bridge in Portland, Oregon. The structure is under construction, with crews working on the deck below, while the river stretches in the background. Workers take a break sitting on metal structures of a bridge under construction in 1950. They rest and smoke while suspended above the water, in a common moment on large engineering projects of the time. In the winter of 1941, an aerial view shows the Manhattan skyline covered by a layer of snow. The record highlights the aligned buildings in the cold weather, forming an urban landscape marked by winter in the city. In 1959, in Cogne, Italy, the scene shows a woman cutting hay and carrying a large load on her head. She uses a rake for the task, reflecting intense rural work in the mountains where agriculture still depended on physical effort and traditional methods. In 1953, the record shows a moving day in Lakewood, California. The scene represents the era of suburban expansion, when many families settled in new homes around major urban centers. Around 1925, the Nantasket Beach waterfront in Massachusetts appears filled with vintage automobiles during the Independence Day weekend. The scene shows vehicles parked near the sea, forming the typical holiday rush. At Grand Coulee Dam, Washington, United States, in 1930, the image shows a flock of sheep crossing the dam. The crossing was part of a pastoral movement that used the elevated way to move stock between different grazing areas. Sophia Loren attends a conference in 1955 when her career was advancing rapidly in Italian cinema and in Hollywood. She appears before the audience during an official engagement of that period. The photo shows participants gathered for an unusual contest held in England in 1967. The event took place in a small country town and drew residents in a festive mood. People wear varied themed outfits and show playful expressions before the local audience. In the Soviet Union, in 1972, the Meteor hydrofoil boat is recorded in full motion. The craft uses hydrofoil technology that lifts the hull above the water while moving, allowing greater speed and stability. Photographed in 1956, the General Motors Aerotrain appears as an experimental train created to offer faster, more comfortable travel. Its futuristic design stood out and drew great interest at the time. Around 1930 in Ocean Park, California, the photograph records one of the first meetings of the Mickey Mouse Club. The audience is made up of children wearing identical masks of the character, creating a uniform look inside the crowded hall. In 1970, Bob Hope performs in a Christmas show organized for United States troops in Vietnam as part of the entertainment tours promoted by the United Service Organizations. The event brings music, humor, and special appearances to lift the soldiers' morale during the conflict. In 1962, the account presents a woman who devoted much of her life to caring for more than 600 dogs. Her steady work led to the creation of a shelter that became a model of compassion and assistance for animals in need. In 1908, a photograph by J.L. Blessing records Wei Au, called Pretty Flower, a member of the Seneca Nation of the Iroquois Confederacy. The image shows her firm pose and traditional dress, highlighting the cultural representation and the historical importance of her people. The photo shows Mahatma Gandhi arriving in England in 1931 to take part in the Second Round Table Conference in London, representing the Indian National Congress in discussions about India's political future. At sea aboard the battleship United States ship Connecticut on February 1st, 1945, the scene shows President Franklin Delano Roosevelt delivering a speech to the crew. He wears a dark suit as he addresses more than 2,000 sailors gathered on the deck to hear the official message. Between June 1942 and May 1945, the aviators of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment of the Soviet Air Force, known as the Night Witches, flew night missions against enemy positions in the Leningrad region. In March 1947, a Red Cross train left Budapest, Hungary for Switzerland carrying medical supplies, provisions, and people seeking recovery after the end of the world conflict. In a rural area of the Soviet Union in 1961, the image shows a boy telling a local shepherd about Yuri Gagarin's flight. He explains that on April 12, 1961, the spacecraft Vostok 1 made the first human spaceflight. In August 1970, the record shows Jack Charlton of Leeds United smoking a cigarette during a training session. The scene reflects habits common among athletes of the time, before modern changes in sports routines. At Coventry Ordnance Works in England in 1914, the scene shows a worker being helped out of a BL-15 gun after finishing the cleaning of the rifling. This task was part of essential maintenance during the First World War. In 1945, the image shows an elephant helping load supplies into an American aircraft. During the Second World War, these animals were used to move heavy materials in hard-to-reach areas. A chimpanzee gently feeds a leopard cub at Southam Park Zoo in 1971. The scene shows the animal helping to care for the cub under staff supervision, marking a rare moment of interspecies interaction in a controlled setting. A wine seller walks the streets of Istanbul in the late 19th century, carrying a large barrel strapped to his back. The scene shows a traditional method of transport and sale used in the city during that period. A group of children walks carefully across an icy surface, watching each step with curiosity. They touch the slippery ground, exploring the new feeling while trying to keep their balance, in a moment marked by discovery and spontaneous fun. Around 1900 in London, the scene shows a street butcher known as the Cat Meat Man preparing food for cats and dogs that wait in a line before him. A llama is carried in the back of a car in New York in 1957. In the background, the lit buildings and the signs of Times Square create a curious scene in the center of the city. A small gas station in North Carolina appears in 1939, with people seated on the wooden porch in front of the building. Signs for drinks, fuels, and cigarettes cover the walls, while an old fuel pump stands beside the entrance. In 1947, a model taking part in a fashion event in Paris has her outfit pulled by people in the streets. The episode took place during social tension, when some of the public saw high fashion as a sharp contrast to the hardship and scarcity after the war. The Spaghetti Aid, created by United States inventor Russell E. Oakes in 1955, was designed to make eating pasta easier. The device aimed to make the meal more practical for people who had difficulty handling the food. In the 1940s, Hollywood makeup artist Max Factor develops an ice mask intended to reduce facial swelling. The accessory covers the entire face with cooled compartments, reflecting experimental beauty solutions of that period. A vendor refuels his motorized roller skates in 1961, adjusting the small tank before continuing his route. The scene reflects the experimental use of this kind of equipment during the period. A man takes part in a demonstration of a shaving robot presented in the 1990s. The device uses mechanical arms to apply foam and make the cut, showing the era's interest in automated technologies for everyday life. The image records the presentation of the collective shaving concept called ERIC, created in the 1960s. In it, several customers are placed side by side while receiving a simultaneous shave by a mechanical system designed to speed service. At the second exhibition of automatic machines in London in 1960, a vending device capable of mixing whiskey and soda was presented. The photograph records the machine in operation, noted as an innovation for the time. In 1922, in Washington, District of Columbia, the photograph shows a man attending to a young woman's feet during a public event. He became known as the Doctor of the Toes, a nickname tied to the unusual service he provided at public occasions. A policeman in London observes and judges an ankle competition during the 1930s. The participants sit behind a raised panel, leaving only their legs visible for evaluation. In the 1930s, so-called baby cages were installed on building windows to ensure that apartment-dwelling children received fresh air and sunlight. The device allowed youngsters to be in the open air, even in densely built urban areas. In 1954, at Pomona College, California, a student takes part in the so-called weigh-in, a practice in which members of the football team recorded the measurements of new female students. The scene shows the procedure as part of the school activities of the time. In Leipzig, Germany, the image records firefighters using steel helmets that discharged water and leather coats to protect against heat and sparks during operations. This equipment was used in urban interventions of the time and offered a practical way to reduce risk in fire settings. May 8, 1945, marks the moment when an American soldier in Okinawa, Japan, hears on the radio the news of Germany's surrender in the Second World War. The portable set carries live bulletins announcing the end of hostilities in Europe. In an unidentified port in 1898, the image shows fisherman Edwin Couch beside his niece Bessie on the pier. They wait for the boats returning with the day's catch amid the typical bustle of coastal work of the time. In Java, Indonesia, in 1930, the image shows Madame Gustika, presented as a member of the so-called duckbill community, smoking through large lip plates worn as a traditional ornament. Around 1910 in Karaka Bay near Wellington, New Zealand, the scene shows a house being moved. The structure is transported with equipment available at the time, following a careful process to shift the entire building. In 1911, the photograph shows a cat drinking from a bottle. The record highlights the animal's simple interaction with its surroundings, reflecting cats' steady presence as companions in daily home life. During the Australasian Antarctic expedition in 1912, Cecil Madigan appears wearing protective gear suited to the polar climate. The photograph shows the hard challenges posed by the region's extreme cold. Recorded in 1956, the scene shows a girl lying in a hospital bed while watching ducklings swim in a small basin beside her. She is connected to a respiratory device used in treatments of the time and follows the animals with an animated expression. Recorded in Sweden in 1959, the scene shows hockey players on a frozen lake when the ice breaks near the goal. The sudden opening surprises the athletes, causing some to fall into the water and forcing the game to stop. The image shows a woman leaning over to offer a drink to a machine gun operator lying beside a street in Lisieux, France. The scene was recorded in 1944, during a period of heavy military activity in the region. The soldier appears wearing equipment developed for the British Army in the First World War. He wears a reinforced helmet and holds a gauntlet with an attached blade, made for close trench fighting. In Hollywood, California, in 1956, the image shows Mamie Van Doren posing in a studio during a photo session produced to promote works of United States cinema. In this record from the 1950s, a lounge car of the Union Pacific Streamliner is shown in use. The space was designed to give passengers comfort during travel, with areas for rest and socializing along the route. The image shows a mother helping her daughter remove a baby tooth at home in England in 1897. The scene takes place in a simple domestic setting with period furniture and natural light, while the mother uses a cloth and gentle gestures to calm the child during the process. On July 3, 1899, two boxers face each other in New York. The sport was still in a time of transition, with modern rules beginning to be applied and events gaining a more organized format. A woman stands before the wreckage of a train accident in an old photograph. The scene reflects a time when rail disasters were frequent, since safety systems were still being developed and improved in the early years of railways. In 1963, Alfred Eisenstadt photographs children completely absorbed as they watch a puppet show in the Tuileries Garden in Paris. Their attentive faces show the enchantment the performance created for young audiences at the time. In 1918, a group of hunters gathers weapons and gear in the Washington District of Columbia region. They organize outdoors before heading out in a scene typical of hunting practices of the time. A Japanese family fishes at the water's edge in 1904. Women, men, and children use nets and baskets to collect fish or other sea creatures, working together in a traditional activity practiced in coastal areas of the country. British and Commonwealth soldiers attend a friendly match between England and Scotland on October 4, 1941, during the Second World War. They gather in the London stands to watch the game, enjoying a rare moment of leisure amid the conflict. A man poses beside a very large fish, caught in 1903. The animal, identified as a Pacific black sea bass, weighed about 425 pounds, making it one of the largest specimens recorded in that period. In 1938, the image shows a cooking class at the Reich Brides and Mothers School on Schwanenwerder Island in Berlin. The institution was part of German government initiatives of the time aimed at training women for domestic roles considered traditional. In 1915, during the First World War, the scene records a messenger dog leaping over a trench. The photograph highlights the animal's agility, used to carry messages between positions, helping communication where other means were hard or risky.